Kia ora everyone, ko Kylie Horome toko ingoa, and I am very excited to bring you to the session today on digital adoption in the primary industries. So with me I have some good friends. One of them is my boss, so I love him to bits. But I thought what we'd start with is if you could both give us a short elevator pitch on yourselves and your businesses, and yeah, we can get going from there. So we'll start with you, Liz.
Hi, I'm Liz from Research First. We are a market research company, but we're more on the social science side of things. So we're sociologists and psychologists. We work across all of the different business sectors, but we have a real passion for rural research, which includes a lot of the agri-tech stuff. We like getting out on farm, we like talking to farmers. There's a whole range of tools and techniques that are quite different from how you talk to different sectors of the population. So, and that's a real passion of ours at Research First.
Thank you. And the beautiful Brendan O'Connell.
Well, great to be following after Research First. Been a really good partner to us in the last while. Ko Brendan O'Connell toko ingoa. My background is in technology development, and I've been involved in agri-tech for about the last 17 years. And during that time, I've got involved with various associations which have actually now all sort of merged into Agri-Tech New Zealand. So my current role is as Chief Executive of Agri-Tech New Zealand. And we are an industry association that connects the interests and the sense of identity around different parties who are connected to agri-tech interests. We promote on their behalf, and we look at advocating on their behalf. So quite a broad industry group, membership driven and independent. And yeah, we've been behind this work, as you know, Kylie, in doing the looking at digital adoption, and Research First has been our partner in doing so.
Yep. So full disclosure, actually, I forgot to mention I'm the Growth and Transformation Manager for Agri-Tech New Zealand, so I am incredibly biased when it comes to agri-tech and what's happening in that space. So first, I'm quite keen to just let everyone understand the definition of agri-tech. Like, what does it cover and what doesn't it cover?
Yeah, so it is quite a broad definition, I guess, a lot of the time. And so we put the emphasis on the tools and services that help productive capacity in primary industries. So that means it tends to have a focus on activities that happen behind the farm gate, but of course more and more the importance of connecting what happens behind the farm gate with what gets to consumers and is connected through the value chain means that the technologies and what's defined as agri-tech includes some of the digital tools and devices that will be happening on farm.
So what's a couple of examples of that?
So, you know, you could be talking about identification weighing systems for animals, soil sensors measuring moisture, you could be talking imaging sensors that are measuring crops, maybe the information management systems that are pulling that together. And also then other sort of mechanical tools and services that help farms and orchards and the like grow more efficiently. And a key part of it, of course, is how that connects with the wider industry. So it's maybe connecting information between different groups of farms, and definitely connecting the values and the history of the product that's coming from farms through the supply chain. So when I say it's behind the farm gate or behind the orchard gate, that's where the emphasis is, but it doesn't just stop there. There's definitely connections with what happens in terms of traceability, proof of claims, consumers gaining a better understanding of what's behind their food, which is becoming so important. And of course, from Agri-Tech's point of view, it is tools and services that are used by New Zealand farmers, so it's definitely a big it's an industry that has developed on the strength of our primary industries here and how farming is done here. But it's also a set of products and services and IP that New Zealand innovators are bringing to the world. So it's being applied to farms and orchards and the ilk overseas as well.
So, I mean, obviously for those who are unfamiliar with the term agri-tech, agri-tech in itself isn't new, right? I mean, New Zealand's been doing it for a long time.
I think since society structured itself to start doing farming, there has been agri-tech in terms of the tools that are used to enable better efficiencies in farming practices. Of course, as we enter the digital and the network age, you know, the nature of those tools is changing as much as it is in any other sector. So, you know, whether it's the use of AI, whether it's the use of machine learning, in addition to the use of electric fencing and
Right.
and you know, new fencing pliers, and you know, those are all things that fall under the definitions of agri-tech. They really are the tools and services that enhance productive capacity. And so it ends up being a broad range of things. And of course, you know, it has the term agri in it, but that term agri also includes what happens in horticulture, in viticulture,
Right, so
in
it's
aquaculture.
all sectors.
It is productive capacity.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's quite a holistic ecosystem in many ways. Okay. So, and I will come to you shortly, Liz. So just to sort of wrap up this contextual piece then, is it, you know, would you say that agri-tech in New Zealand is ahead, behind, you know, where do we stand on the global stage when it comes to how well are we doing?
So agri-tech as a sector, as an investment class, and as a focus across all farming systems around the world, is at the real nexus of a lot of change. So the agri-tech has been getting a lot of investment and a lot of understanding from investors in terms of what that means, and that's for good reason. You know, they say that, you know, there's only a few truths in life, so that, you know, sort of a death and taxes. Yeah, well, food happens to be part of that mix as well, whether it's keeping you alive or you're paying your taxes on it. And so food and the challenges we have around food production globally mean that agri-tech is a really active industry internationally. It holds many of the answers to how do we produce more food for growing populations, how do we do that in a climate crisis, and how do we do that, you know, at better levels of production to for what consumers are looking for.
Cool.
So New Zealand is doing really well in that space, to get to your question. So in that active sort of international scene,
Yep.
New Zealand has some real advantages. Some of those include the fact that our farmers and growers have been growing their businesses without subsidies or support for a long time. So they're very professional at what they do. Therefore, we always thought, and part of the reason we wanted to do this research was to prove that actually we have some pretty good levels of adoption already, that because our farmers and growers are very professionally orientated, they're not just responding to where subsidies are, they're actually responding to where they can find good business, which of course means connected to your consumer, to your end user. That New Zealand, the environment for agri-tech in New Zealand is extremely healthy.
Right.
Our challenges, you know, tend to be that we're a small country. You know, some of our farming practices are maybe not unique to New Zealand, but they only have niches of similarity around the world when we think of our grass type industries and our pastoral type systems. So that's a challenge in terms of how we link. But in general, we're doing very well on the back of our primary industries, and we have a good ecosystem for agri-tech development here. So it's a good strength.
Awesome. So diving into why we're here is the body of research that was undertaken with both Research First and Agritech New Zealand around digital adoption. You know, what, why, how, all of those sort of things. So I'll start with you, Liz, in terms of why do you think it was important for this body of work to be done in the first place?
I think mainly because there's a lot of myths out there that are not necessarily true, and everyone thinks, oh, farmers don't like tech. They want to go and walk the paddock. There's all these myths that needed to be dispelled. There's no real evidence out there anywhere globally that covered those gaps of knowledge that we had. So what we've done in New Zealand is a real first of its kind piece of work that looks more into what farmers actually think, how they behave, and why those barriers and drivers are there.
Yep. And so you would agree with that, or was there anything else other than what Liz has said?
No, 100%. It was definitely I guess we had some ideas or thoughts around what we thought adoption levels looked like in New Zealand. Anybody who's been operating in the sector had been, you know, building up their own map of where they thought adoption was and how to go about interacting with farmers and growers. So many people, including organizations that I've worked with and competitor organizations, had our own theories based on our user base and based on our progress in the market of what we thought adoption looked like. But none of us had an external reference point to be able to go, well, what's the truth here, and how is the market actually set up. So there were a few. We were inspired by work that Dairy NZ had done, specifically on dairy shed technologies. They'd done some really good work over the years, and they'd done surveys in 2008, 2013, 2018, and they're repeating it this year. So they've got sort of 5-year gaps of looking at how dairy shed technologies, so milk sensors in the sheds, identification systems and other things. And it was a very narrow set of technologies that they were looking at, but very useful to see that progress over time. So we wanted to bust some of the myths and create a baseline by which we could do future studies and show how these things change and what some of the intervention points might be.
So Liz, what myth busted? What's one of the biggest things that you were so surprised about in the survey and the research?
I think the biggest thing we were surprised about was how keen all the farmers and growers were to take part.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's different, right? Because often if someone's calling you up and they're, oh, have you got time for a survey? No.
Well, we do this all the time, and we realise that we're a burden
Yeah.
on these farmers.
You're a massive burden to us.
There's a limited population, and we ask them about stuff all the time, and it's on a huge variety of topics. And there's, some farmers and growers will be more engaged with some topics than others. But for this one, even those farmers that were in the kind of the lower adoption stages, the kind of the more traditional farms, even they were keen to give us their views. I mean, it was a multi-stage research project, so we had phone calls going, and we were doing focus groups, and we were out on farm. And the farmers that gave us their time and allowed us to go and walk around their farms and showed us stuff, that was something that I think was special on this project. That was different from a lot of the other projects that we do.
Okay. What about you, Brendan? Biggest myth busted?
When you hear people talking about adoption of technology on farm, or you hear people talking about farmers in general, which is a conversation I'm now very uncomfortable with, because I think one of the things we've proven is sort of obvious, but we were able to quantify it in some way, is that farmers and growers are far from a homogenous group. There are very many different businesses and personalities in there. But when you look at sort of commentary about farming internationally and locally, people are, well, it's an aging population, so farmers are too old to adopt technology. It's an ageist comment, and it's an ageist sort of belief that was there. And what I loved about the first of the sort of the myths that got busted was that it's far more about stage of farm than age of farmer. And so you can see trailblazing farmers in the older age groups of 65 plus. Maybe not quite at the same levels as you might see in younger farmers, but they exist. And so it's not about the age of the farm, it's about the stage of the farm and how the business is being run that really matters.
I think you just won the word bingo there.
Yeah.
So Liz and I had a bet as to whoever was going to spit out, it's not the age of the farmer, it's the stage of the farm. And you get a chocolate. So I suppose heading into sort of wrapping this up, what's next? I mean, obviously, for anyone that wants to read the report, it is available on Agritech New Zealand's website, if you just clicked on resources. And, personally, fantastic report. Again, slightly biased. But Liz, what's next for Research First? Diving further into digital adoption, or have you got other things on the mind?
Well, this project has definitely spun off some other projects that we've done. So we've looked into specific areas of tech adoption. So we've looked at data security. We've looked at people's willingness to adopt those kind of overarching tools that could link up a lot of farms. And we've also done a fairly big study recently that's looked at connectivity in rural communities, so kind of broader than just farmers and growers, but what the impact of extending those digital networks into those rural communities would be, impacts on well-being as well as productivity in the economy.
Oh, fantastic. When does that come out?
I'll have to find out when it's published. I'll just have to find out when it's published.
Looking forward to that. What about you? What's next?
Lots of ideas about what's next. I just been following up on your comments there, Liz. I think one of the things that worked really well in our partnership was the fact that you were able to come from having done so many of the surveys and building those relationships with farmers and growers. and that we're able to structure the data in a way that it does have that multi-use. So we're delighted that some of the data structures and that we inherited some of those from
definitely.
other industry
Yeah.
players, and that some of our question structure and data structure can be made available to others because it's a contribution to a wider body of knowledge, and that's why you guys are such a good partner.
Yeah.
And definitely worth mentioning the award.
Oh yeah,
So what's
we
the-
won an award.
Yeah.
Oops. Oh yeah, we won an award.
You know the details of that award better than
Yeah,
us. We
so
were
it
just
was
celebrating.
it was the Research Association New Zealand, which is the industry body for people that use research data and insights, so both providers and users of that research and data. So every couple of years they won the Research Effectiveness Awards, and that looks, so all the member companies, there's 70, 80 odd member companies, and they get to submit their best projects over the last couple of years, and they get judged to identify the ones that have had the most impact and effectiveness. And that was us.
Twice, right?
Well,
For
we
two
won
different awards.
Yeah, we won the business to business category and the Supreme Award.
Supreme Award.
Winners.
And that's another reason why you should read this report. It's award winning.
It is great to get that recognition, and, and I guess, your original question about what's next with this, it was titled, and it is a baseline of digital adoption. So we wanted to work across all the different sectors that we did in terms of dairy, dry stock, horticulture, arable, and make sure that this was a baseline of understanding. Obviously, sort of the name is on the box to some extent. We definitely see ourselves repeating this in the future, but maybe allowing some time. There's a lot of things changing in the sector, so I could see us repeating this research in 2025. We know there's a lot changing in the sector, especially in the livestock scene here in New Zealand, with emissions pricing likely to be kicking in that type of that time frame, and that and other things are going to drive a lot of change. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the survey demonstrates levels of change across some of the different technology types. But before 2025, I'm very keen to do an impact study to look at, once we have this understanding of different parts of the population, our trailblazers, our persuadables, our pragmatists, our conservatives, our traditionalists, looking at what, across the barriers that we identified, where there are changes, where there's different levels of adoption and new tools tried and new capabilities tried, what does that mean in terms of impact on the sector? So what changes in terms of economic performance, social benefits, environmental progress and benefits, and really look at understanding that adoption is not just an economic factor, it's actually a contribution to the development of all primary industries here in New Zealand. And so look at an impact study in that space.
And I think on a grassroots level, if you're a tech business out there, fundamentally it can help inform how you need to be communicating with these farmers and growers, and what some of those barriers are to you actually making a sale, and how is it all TikTok from here on out, or is it something else? So I think, if anything, research like this can help all levels of that value chain, whether you are the farmer or grower or whether you are the tech company, and how you can make some improvements to, make more money, get more revenue for the country and the industry, and for yourselves. So I think it's absolutely brilliant, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes next. Or how many?
How we lined up those population segments in the report, that was done because of what the data was telling us, and we were sort of pulling a different piece of data to sort of look at different population segments. But of course that lines up with a lot of businesses in terms of how they think of their end users and their consumers. We definitely heard from groups like Zespri and Fonterra, how are they understanding the behaviours that are happening in the market. And so there's good alignment there. So I would hope that, technology companies who are looking at understanding their customers better, as they develop their own sort of learned experience through speaking with farmers and growers, that they'll be able to come back and refer to the report and go, okay, yeah, that's standing up in terms of, the 13% of our audience that we consider to be trailblazers, or the ones that we consider to be pragmatists, and what do we mean by that, and how might you communicate with those different groups differently, and what are those interactions. So definitely want to see it used by agri-tech businesses here, and hopefully some of the language will start persisting around the market. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it being
Great.
used.
Awesome. Well, we're going to wrap up here, but I want to thank you both for being here and sharing your insights into the report. And for anyone who hasn't read the report yet, shame on you. That's all I got to say. And you can get it on our website. So thank you very much.
Great. Good work,
Thanks.
guys. Yep. Thank you.